Guys, welcome back to Magic TV. It's 9 o'clock, which means it's time for Talk Magic. And I have here on the show today a magic dealer, not just a magic dealer, but a magic dealer that's been making waves in the magic community the last 2 or 3 years. He is Mr. Ace Magic Studios. It is the one and only Gary Sumpter. How you doing, Gary?
I'm very good, Craig. How are you doing, my friend?
Great. Thank you so much for coming on the channel. I really appreciate it. I know that you're busy. I know you got a million things on, so thank you.
Literally a million things, yeah. No, it's great to be on here. I've been watching all of your shows. I absolutely love them. And it's quite nice for me to get my face out, to be honest, because most people will know Stevo and Martin, who work with me. They're kind of the faces on the videos. They do the dealer dems. I'm kind of the backstage guy, but Ace is my baby. So it's nice for me to have a chance to talk.
Well, also, I want more people to know who you are and who Ace Magic Studios are for a couple of different reasons. One, I've got a big audience on this channel from America. And I think a lot of Americans might not have even heard of Ace Magic Studio. They're probably thinking, well, who's this guy? So it's good to actually get your name out there. But also, and I've openly talked to on this channel about the problem in the community these days about terrible magic downloads and guys that haven't got a clue what they're doing, release crap that's just really substandard. And I know from seeing your stuff firsthand and knowing you for the last couple of years that you are very, very proud of the stuff that you put out. And that shines through in every release. And you know, that's why I've been speaking to people on the channel like you, like Andy Gladwin, like Mark Mason, all of these dealers who I have a lot of respect for, because you guys are the ones that are doing it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, yesterday I watched the Mark Mason video, which I really, really enjoyed. It's really interesting. Yeah, we are doing things the right way. It's a strange thing to say, but we're massive fans of Ricky Gervais, and especially Derek. And there's a quote in Derek, which basically says that he took a shortcut, the only shortcut that works, and that's kindness. And we kind of live by that. And I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but we're trying to be the nice guys of magic. So in everything that we do, we just try to be nice people. There are a lot of magic dealers out there that are solely business focused. Always have been, always will be, and the same in every single industry. There's only a select handful that live and breathe magic. You know, it's all encompassing, and we are one of those companies. You know, magic is literally our life. It doesn't finish at 5 o'clock. It's everything that we do. It just takes over our life, and we're really, really passionate about what we do. The products that we put out are super high quality. I mean, Ace has been running for 3 years now, and if you was to look at all of our product reviews on Facebook, on the website, if you put them all into a spreadsheet, you'll find they're 99.9% 5-star. And then I think there's 2 or 3 4-star, but even the written comments are fantastic on the 4-star. We've only ever had 1 negative review on Facebook, and that was from a chap who bought one of our effects called Tican and caused a bit of a scene because it wasn't in Spanish. Incredibly. Yeah, that was the whole thing. He couldn't understand how to do it because he didn't speak English.
Well, no, I don't, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. You need to be putting that stuff out in at least 15 languages.
Okay, so I'm going to register that domain, multilingualmagic.com. I'll do that after.
Now, before we get into Ace, because I do want to talk about it, because I do think that what you're doing is amazing. Can we start with you as a person? Because obviously, one of the things that makes Ace Magic Studio so awesome is the fact that there's a real person behind it that's passionate about magic. Now, let's talk about you. When did you first get into magic, Gary? Was it the quintessential story that everyone tells? I got a magic set when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, or was there something slightly different about it?
Yeah, it's a similar story to most, really. So I've genuinely been thinking about this myself recently. Prior to this interview and talking to yourself, it's been on my mind. And I bought a couple of things for kind of old time's sake, which I'll show you in a second. So my earliest magic memory, I was either 5 or 6, and it's so strange because this memory is so clear in my mind to the finest detail. I can see myself, as I said, age 5 or 6, on my knees in my nan's front room, in front of her telly, watching David Copperfield do the Escape from Alcatraz special. And honestly, in my mind, I can see the texture of the carpet. I can see the grain of the wood. It's so damn clear. That's the earliest memory that I can ever remember of magic. I'm sure I would have been into magic prior to that, but that's where I would say it started. And David Copperfield was huge for me. Still is an absolute idol for me. So when I was a kid, my nan was always my biggest fan. She's not with us now, sadly, but she was the person that supported me the most. She was the person that I would show every single trick to. So when I was a kid, I used to spend a hell of a lot of time with my nan. Most weekends I'd go and sleep there, and it was just an amazing time. You know, I had a great childhood. My nan was absolutely awesome. So yeah, I used to watch the Copperfield special there. I seem to remember I had it on a VHS tape that kind of got worn out from replaying. Then I remember when I used to go over a weekend, she'd take me to Toys R Us to treat me to something, and it was always something magic related. Now, I don't know if you remember, but there was a range of magic called Magic Works, which I don't know the details, but I think it was a licensed version of Tenyo products, I think. And these were magic tricks. So you get one trick per product, and the methods behind them were very Tenyo-esque. They were very, very clever. Magic sets were great, but they were very much, magic sets tend to have things that you have to do things with to make them work, whereas these Magic Works things kind of work themselves, as long as you know what to do. And they were incredible. And then one year I remember, and I'll be honest, at this time of my life, I was a horrible child. It's well known in my family. I was a little git when I was younger. I was a very naughty boy. But for a few days, my mum and my nan just weren't around. They just weren't here, and I didn't understand it. It turned out my granddad had passed, and I was very young. They didn't want to sort of, bring it to me. But because I was so good during that time, when I came back, my nan said, "I've got a present for you. It's behind the sofa." Reached behind the sofa, and it's the Paul Daniels magic set, which absolutely blew my mind, because it's the one thing I wanted. The Paul Daniels set was the set. So that was the first magic set that I ever got. And as I said, I picked up a few things. So for old time's sake, I managed to find the original set that I was bought on eBay.
Wow.
And it's still sealed. A few things have shifted out of place, but it's still sealed. And this is the first magic set that I ever had.
I remember that set.
We all just think how many people in the world started magic from this box. It's just incredible. Just incredible. So yeah, that was my first ever magic set. And I also bought, which I'll show you here, the second set that I was bought after, which was this one. Very, very similar. Very similar items inside. But what an important part of our kind of childhoods, seeing these things. It just brings back so many memories. And around this time, I remember there being a magic dealer called Magic Direct. Now, as a more sensible adult now, looking back, I think they were undercutting people, and I think they had a bit of a bad rep. But at the time, it was quite an exciting thing. And I managed to get one of their catalogues. And when I looked at the front of the catalogue, there was a postal address, and it was 4 roads from my nan's house. I couldn't believe it. So I gave them a call, and they said, "Oh, we've got loads of magic here in our hallway." It was just a house. Do you want to come round? So I went round and grabbed a load of magic and everything. So that was pretty exciting. And again, I went back to my nan's and showed her every single trick that I'd learned, 10 seconds worth of practice. But being my nan, she gave the reactions that we all look for. Looking back, she faked every single one, but bless her for doing it, because it pushed me forward, So that was a really, really great time. So I became a big fan of, obviously, Paul Daniels, watching the Paul Daniels magic show, as we all did. Very much for the magic, but also for the guest acts. I'm sure you'll remember that on the Paul Daniels show, he'd bring in somebody from somewhere in the world to do something. Tom Noddy, for example, doing his bubbles and things. And there's always one that stood out. There was a guy, and I don't want to offend, I'm probably wrong here, but I think he was Samoan, but I'm not sure. But he had a full, all the gear on and everything. And all he was talking about was husking a coconut. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And he had like a little hobby horse type thing with a blade on the front, and he'd sit there and he'd be doing all this with the shell. It was absolutely hilarious. It was proper variety on a Saturday. And that kind of brought me closer to, not that I wasn't close with my parents at all, but it kind of brought us closer, because I'd watched the Paul Daniels magic show. They weren't really interested in magic, let's be honest, but they loved the variety acts. So that was a program that I could watch with my parents, and we'd all enjoy it, you know, which was really, really important. Then I remember, I'd say I was about 9 or something like that. It was my birthday, and my oldest sister, she took me to McDonald's in a nearby town. So we had the McDonald's as a treat, and I was really happy. And then we was walking back to the car, and we was walking past the Central Theatre in Chatham, and she stopped, and she went, "Oh, by the way, I've got something for you." I said, "What?" And she handed me 2 tickets to the Paul Daniels magic show, and we went straight in. That was my treat for my birthday. I'd never been in a theatre at that point. I'd never seen a live magic show at that point. And I can distinctly remember it was pure magic. It was Paul Daniels. Come on, you know, it was incredible. And I remember the finale being a routine that we've all seen, where Paul is on stage doing bits and pieces. He then disappears, comes running in from the back. He does a transposition with his son, basically Martin. And I remember that moment just being absolutely incredible, because we were sat in the theatre, and when Martin comes in at the back, he's got a whistle, so obviously everybody turns around, and I just remember hearing that whistle, turning around and seeing him run down, and it just absolutely blew my mind. I mean, even now, it gets me choked up, honestly. Even now, these little things, these little moments that have made me who I am to the point where I am now at this age is incredible. And I sort of think, if I hadn't gone to that show, or if I hadn't got that set, or even if I didn't watch that special on TV, I may have no interest in magic right now. And that's absurd. My life is magic. Everything I do is about magic, you know. So going on a little bit further, and talking about the interview with Mark Mason. So we used to holiday in Blackpool fairly frequently. And one holiday I discovered JB Magic, or Jokebox Magic. And I remember going in there and absolutely falling in love with a set of Chinese sticks. Just a standard Chinese stick, black, white tips. But they were too expensive. I was young, my parents were paying, and in their mind, that was too much for a single trick. And I remember Mark Deming the Mirage wallet, I believe it's called, which is the card to wallet, which I really liked. So my parents said to me, look around at the stuff. We'll come back in a couple of days, because we only just arrived. It was the second day that we were there. We were there for a week. They said, we'll come back and get you, you know, what you like. Now, I need to put a public apology out to Mark Mason, because I was young, naive. I didn't know any better. I went straight to a gift shop in Blackpool. I bought a £2 wallet. I had some cards and some elastic bands, and I made myself a Mirage wallet. And it worked. Now, I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't know any better. I wouldn't do that now. I will say I did go back and spend all my money on other stuff anyway. But I'm very sorry, Mark.
Knowing Mark as they do, he'd probably just find the whole thing hilarious.
I think he would. Yeah. So moving on a little bit from that. So I think I was about 13 maybe. And I wasn't really aware of Davenport's at the time. But I was made aware of it. So I ordered a Davenport's catalogue, which came through. And as part of my looking back recently, I actually bought a Davenport's catalogue, which was the same as the one that I had when I was younger, just to read through, which is fascinating. So I bought this, and I placed an order, and I believe I paid for the order with a postal order, believe it or not. It was that long ago that you could still use postal orders for that sort of stuff. And I remember buying a coin unique, a sig through coin, and some other stuff. And that was really my first introduction into what we would call quality magic. It wasn't plastic props anymore. It was serious stuff. So I think the things changed for me at that point. Once I realized, hang on a minute, there is more than just these plastic things. There's things that look real. You know, that was kind of incredible. And that same year for Christmas, I was bought, and I have one, it's on my shelf over there, a executive set from Marvin's. So again, although it was plastic, it was slightly higher end than the stuff I was used to. And the great thing about that is I got my Chinese sticks that year.
Yeah, of course you did.
I'm really pleased. Really pleased. A few years later, my sister took me for my birthday up to London to visit Davenport's. That particular year, I had a lot of spending money, and I went into Davenport's, and I can still remember the looks on their faces. It was my sister and about 4 of her friends. Bearing in mind, they were teenagers, you know, they were the cool guys. I was this kind of nerdy kid going into a little magic shop. I think she thought we was going to be in there for about 15 minutes. We was in there for about 4 hours. They were getting very annoyed. And I can honestly say that I went for quantity over quality in that visit to Davenport's. I came away with about 40 different things, appearing canes, appearing candles, vanishing roses, stuff that, you know, when you look back, you think, why did I do that? But I think I just wanted a piece of Davenport's. I mean, you know what it's like. It's the location's not great, but once you step beyond that door, it's like Ollivander's. It's just so magical. I just felt like I wanted a bit from every cabinet, you know. So spent a lot of money there. So I know that we spoke very, very briefly before this call, and you asked me, have you ever been a professional magician, as in a performer? And I'm more than happy to address that. So I did a hell of a lot more performance when I was younger, I'll be honest. I have done working paid stuff. So my mum was a restaurant manager that was her career. She was always a restaurant manager. So every Christmas I'd be there doing the magic for the tables. I've done a lot of charity shows as well, which I've really enjoyed. So I've done stage manipulation, I've done stage illusions, I've done close up, a bit of everything, circus skills, you know, a bit of an all-rounder really. I just love all of it. But I used to have that question all the time, you know, why don't you do this professionally? And I didn't want to. That's the simple answer. I didn't want to. I've got the utmost respect for guys like yourself and everyone that goes out there and does this as a job. I think it's one of the hardest things that you can do, to always put yourself in that mindset of being an entertainer at every single gig. It is not easy. I remember one particular gig where I just felt terrible that day, and I just did not want to go out and put on a smiley face and perform, because I knew I wasn't going to give it all, because I just didn't feel great inside. You know, you can play the part, but you need to feel the part as well, and I just didn't feel it. I always knew I wanted to do something with magic, but it wasn't just performing. And I spent many, many, many years not knowing what that thing was.
And there's no problem with that. I interviewed Joe Reinfleisch just a few days ago, and he said openly, he said, I'm not a performer. I'm a creator of magic. I like creating magic. I like about magic. I've got a very analytical mind, but I'm not a performer. Look at people like John Bannon. Look at people like Matt Baker. They are not full-time professional magicians. They're not. They create some of the most amazing routines. And I think being a full-time pro is kind of the be-all and end-all and the holy grail for a lot of magicians. But you know, the problem with being a full-time pro is when you start having to rely on magic to create an income, all of a sudden you get less time to treat it as a hobby.
There's a pressure there. And also I would add on to that, I'd add on to that two things if I can. Also, if you look at somebody like Paul Harris, you know, I'm not saying that I put myself on his level, but he is not a performer, and yet he has created some of the best magic there's ever been. So like you say, there is nothing wrong with that. I didn't like the idea of the pressure that it would put on me, as you say, if it was for a full-time income. And the other thing as well is, if you were doing this as a job, so whether it was a daytime thing doing trade shows or whether it was an evening thing doing weddings and stuff, let's say that you're doing a 9 to 5 doing kid shows, for example. When you come home, you don't want to talk magic. You don't want to do magic. You've been doing it all day as your job. I wanted to be talking, thinking, feeling magic all day, every day. And the only way I could see to do that is to separate job and passion. And I always said to people, magic is my passion, not my job. I still maintain that. And we will get onto that when we talk about Ace. You know, magic is still my passion more than my job, without a doubt. Without a doubt. But I feel like I've earned my stripes. You know, it's not that I've never performed and I'm releasing stuff for performers and saying, oh yeah, I'm sure it'll work. I know this stuff will work. I've done enough gigs in my lifetime. I've done enough shows in my lifetime. I've performed enough in my lifetime to know what works and what doesn't. You know, it's just that my magic journey took a different route to most people, which I'm really proud of.
Yeah, that's
really proud of.
Yeah. What would you say? You've over the years, I know that you've read a lot, you've bought a lot, you've studied a lot. In your opinion, outside of the stuff that Ace sells, what's the best trick that you've ever seen?
Easy. The best trick ever created, in my opinion, is Extreme Burn by Richard Sanders. I just think it's incredible. It's incredibly flexible. And I think if you use your brain a little bit, you can really make it your own. You can really make it your own. So I'll tell you something that's happening with me at the moment. Okay. During the pandemic times, we've all had a lot of time to reflect and to think. Something that's happened with me internally is I've decided that once we come out of this on the other side, I'm going to start performing a lot more, not for paid gigs, but for people that I know and love, because they ask, and I want to start giving them what they want. So I've been working on new products, not products, new ideas, little routines and things that I'm going to be working on to bring to them after this. And they are a combination of things that I've created, existing things on the market, bringing different bits and pieces together. So one of the things that I'm doing is I picked up one of the Las Vegas decks from Alakazam that Liam Montier put out, which is basically, it's brilliant. Vegas is literally my second passion. It's magic. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's magic, then it's my kids, then it's Vegas. So when I saw that Liam had that out, I had to get it. So it's a fantastic trick. Full props to Liam on that one. But for me, I wanted to expand it a little bit. So the idea of Liam's deck is basically you've got a deck of cards. There's a different casino on the back of every one, hotels, casinos. And then on the other side, it's playing card faces. So you basically have a couple of selections. Spectator 1 chooses a card, spectator 2 chooses a hotel, and then you reveal your prediction of a poker chip that's got that hotel and card on it. So it's great, you know, as an all-round effect on its own. It's fantastic, but I wanted to take it another step. And this is where we come back to Extreme Burn. So I have designed and printed onto Tyvek, and I'm having made at the moment by Stevo, because he's our master craftsman, a set of Extreme Burn. So I can do the trick, and then as an afterthought, I can say, oh, I bet you're wondering how much I actually won when I had that lucky poker chip. And I start talking about how I was playing on the slots and stuff, and I've got a money clip that's got a Vegas symbol on it. And wrapped in that is, you know, when you play the slots and they spit out the sort of tickets that you feed into the machine, like the redemption tickets, and you collect them and then you redeem them for cash. Yeah. I've designed those the perfect size so that I can pull them all out and say, well, this is how much I won in Vegas. And they're all like $175 and that. And then I can literally say, so when I next go back to Vegas, I'll be boom in the money, and they'll turn it into $100 bills.
Nice. Very nice.
So that makes that mine. We've obviously seen that trick used on TV with different design notes and stuff. But yeah, I genuinely think for being workable, being visual, and being adaptable to you, that's the best trick to come out in a long, long time.
Oh yeah, totally agree with you, 100%.
Incredible, absolutely incredible.
Richard Sanders is a very clever magician, and
I will say, sorry to interrupt, but having spoke to him numerous times, he shares our ethos. He's a lovely, lovely guy, and he makes time for you.
Yeah,
and I think that is a big part of why he's so successful as well.
Totally agree. And it's nice, on a side note, to see somebody who runs a magic dealer ship that's speaking so, you know, you're not dissing the competition. You're talking about, oh, I've bought this trick from Alakazam. It's great. It's great to see that.
Do you know what? Right. Okay. I'll be completely honest. So I don't consider myself or Ace to be a magic dealer. I think personally that a magic dealer is a magic shop. It's somewhere that sells products from everywhere. I've always made the decision not to do that. So all of our stuff is exclusive, designed in-house, produced in-house. We do everything in-house. I know technically Ace is a dealer, but I prefer that it's more, we're creators. I would never diss other magic dealers. I've got so much stuff in here from other companies. I mean, literally, I've got a pile of stuff that I bought down here. If I look at the pile straight away, I'm seeing Flight from Illusionist, incredible, absolutely incredible ring flight. Underneath that, I've got a smoke watch from Gel Miranda Magic that I bought. There's something from TCC there. We've got to support each other. We've got to support each other, and that's the thing. You know, there is room enough for all of us dealers or creators, as long as we're creating sufficiently different things.
Yeah.
You know, I've got magic everywhere. I've got TCC stuff up here. I've got decks from different companies up here. I've got 150 decks of cards or something here. You know, these are from all different creators. I will always support. And this was a few months ago. I bought a load of Magic. Now, I have got an account with Murphy's, but I bought all this stuff direct from the creators because I wanted to support them. I made a conscious decision to spend more and support those guys, in the hope that other people would do that with us. You know, I could have gone through Murphy's and got it cheaper, but I wanted to just give these guys some of my money. The products are fantastic, don't get me wrong, and I wanted them, but it was just a conscious decision to just go direct and help these guys out during what has been a really difficult time for us.
Well, let's talk about Ace. So, in the time frame, you're very, very passionate about magic. You never took the decision to go and become a full-time magician. You perform a lot, but you don't actually go out and do paid gigs.
Yeah.
How did you go from that to opening a magic dealership 3 years ago? Because I'm assuming you had a job. I know you haven't now.
Yeah.
So, what made you go for it? Because without being funny, in the last 5 or 7 years, magic dealers, magic shops have been shutting down left, right, and center. And I remember turning around to a friend about 5 or 6 years ago and saying, I would never open a magic dealership. I would never open a magic dealership. It's not a great business to get into, in my opinion. But you've just not only just got into it and proved me wrong, but you're doing really, really well with it. So how did it go from being a passionate hobbyist to a full-time producer of magic?
Okay, so again, I'll jump on that statement of opening a magic dealership. Again, if you was to open a magic dealership like Alakazam, like Penguin, you know, that sells a range of products, I fully agree it's not a good time to be doing it. But that's not what we've done. We've created a brand, we've created a range of products that nobody else has. We've created exceptional customer service and a really personal touch. That's very, very different to just opening a magic shop.
Yeah.
So if I was to go back, so my job / career history. So once I left school, I did a number of retail jobs, standard things, working in convenience shops and stuff like that. I then moved on to working in an internet cafe. But what I found with these jobs, and this isn't in a big-headed way, but I was very quickly promoted in each of these jobs to management positions. So I thought that my career path was going to take me into like a senior management thing. What it turned out was, it was because genuinely I was just such a nice guy to everybody. That was all it was. So it made sense for me to be the guy that tells everybody else what to do because they all like me. So I went through these different stages, different jobs where I was doing management, and I was thinking, okay, is this the way forward? But I always had a passion for computers. I went to college, a 2-year advanced computing course, of which I did 6 weeks of, and just got bored. I've always needed something to be working on, and something to drive me, and the college course just wasn't doing it, so I left that. As I said, I went into the jobs, and I had a bit of a passion for website design. I thought that was going to be the future for me. So I can't remember what the first job was, but I started working with a web design company, and obviously web design and graphic design go hand in hand, so I was learning both. And I worked with about 4 or 5 web design companies actually over the years, and again, I just got bored. That's how my brain works. I have to be stimulated all the time. There has to be something going on or something about to happen to keep me interested. My interest stagnates quite quickly. So I remember after a period of time, I decided to set up on my own as a web designer, and I worked for, oh blimey, probably about 10 years, sort of working for myself, doing website design stuff, graphic design stuff for print. I enjoyed my work. I really did enjoy my work, but there came a time where it was getting a bit tedious, if I'm honest. And that would take us to, so Ace is now 3 years old. A couple of weeks ago was Ace's birthday, 3 years, which kind of blows my mind, to be honest. That time's gone quick and a lot has happened. But sort of 3.5, 4 years ago, so I was working as a web designer. I'd just finished the biggest project of my life, which was a website for a trade organisation for tradespeople, all different trades, mainly like kitchen installation, that sort of stuff. And honestly, this project had sucked the life out of me. It was the biggest one I'd ever done. It came with its challenges. The payout at the end wasn't really worth it. And once that had finished, because I became known for doing that website, all the trades guys came to me. Can you do our website? Can you do our website? Can you do our website? Financially, great. Mentally, not great. I have zero interest in kitchen installation and things like that. And because I've become known as that guy that does websites for the tradespeople, it was one after another after another. There was no excitement. It was just churning these websites out. You know, they were good websites. The guys were happy with them. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't sort of slacking, but I just wasn't happy. You know, and I was finding that I was doing 11, 12 p.m. finishes and stuff. It wasn't right. And I'm going to be very, very, very open and honest on this. I know this interview is more about the magic side of things, but I'm going to be more honest than I've ever been. Since I was 17, I've had mental health issues with regards to depression. And I know a lot of guys that have also had those issues, and we're all very open about it because it's the only way to get the support that you need. So during this time, I wasn't happy. And my happiness, my depression levels, you know, depression was creeping up. I just wasn't a happy person. So completely out of the blue, and I don't know why, I had the idea for a product. And that was my What's Cooking book test.
Which is really what put you on the map.
It was. Now, I will say, prior to this, I had released products. So I should have mentioned this. I worked for magictricks.co.uk back when they had their previous owners. I was only with them for about a year. They needed someone to kind of be the face and to answer the magic questions and stuff for people. And I released a couple of products there. One was called Mixer, which was an oil and water effect, which was really, really cool. And one was called Index, INDECKS, and it was like a cut to any card deck. And I learned a lot there. And that was where I wrote Shivers, which was a book that I wrote on kind of PK magic. And I also worked on a project, which I believe I've got here. Yes, I have. My first proper book. It's kind of embarrassing, but there's a very fresh-faced Gary Sumpter on the cover. So that, working at magictricks.co.uk, although it was only for a year, it gave me a big insight into the product side of things, which really excited me. It's important I go back, actually. It really excited me, the way that they were set up, and e-commerce as well. I think it was there that I got my buzz for e-commerce, and I sort of decided I want to run an e-commerce business. You know, this is cool. And the way they had things set up where orders would come in and automatically it would print out the order dispatch notes and the labels, and it just blew my mind. So that gave me a passion for e-commerce. I worked with a bunch of e-commerce guys and learned a lot. So if we go back to having this idea of What's Cooking, so I was quite big on cooking. I love cooking programs even now. Every night I'm watching people like Mikey Chen, who they travel the world and sample different foods and stuff. That's like a big passion on my part. So it sort of made sense to combine food and magic/mentalism. So I started working on the What's Cooking book test, and not a word of a lie, it took me a year and a half to design that book. I had to teach myself book design to create that product. I was already familiar with Photoshop and InDesign, but it's a whole different kettle of fish doing a book. And I made mistakes along the way. So yeah, a year and a half. Once it was finished, I showed it to a couple of people, select people, mentalists, and they really liked it. It was never meant to, it was meant to be for me. Genuinely, it was meant to be something for me. But when I showed these guys, they said, I love it. You should show it to this guy. And then he said, you should show it to this guy. Before I knew it, they all wanted one. So I thought, maybe I've got something here. Maybe I should sell it. And I don't know what spurred me on, but I just thought, do you know what? I think I'll just set this up as a sideline business that I can run alongside my web design. And let's just see if it picks up. Let's just see if it goes anywhere. So I got the books produced. I contacted Peter Alakazam, who at that point owned the rights to my Shivers book that he was offering as a download, and said, look, I'd like to buy this back from you because it's a piece of me. I'd like to offer it through what I'm doing. So I took the rights back and had that produced. So when I started Ace, I had 2 products. That was it. And yeah, I put it out to some of the big boys, Murphy's, Penguin, Sans Mines, They all wanted it as an exclusive, but for my own personal reasons, I said no. And those reasons were not financial, but it just wasn't the right thing for me to do. I wanted the control of knowing that the products are quality, that they're going out. I wanted to pack them myself, so I know they're well packed. You know, I wanted that control. You know, I'm a little bit controlling on the magic side. I want to make sure that kind of the last person these products have seen is me. Do you know what I mean? So
Totally get that.
yeah.
And I want to ask you a question about that before we continue, because it's a great time to ask it. It's fair to say that you've been going for 3 years now. Ace has produced some great products. We'll talk about some of them. Maybe you can even show us a couple of them. And you know I'm a big fan of your book test. I'm willing to bet that there's very few people outside of England. I know that you get international orders, lots of international orders. I get that. But I don't think that you're that well known. And it's such a shame because you produce so much great material. And the easy way to get well known is to put everything out through a Murphy's or put everything out through a Penguin, because then people will see who you are. You know, if it's like, you know, Murphy's are supplying to every magic shop around the world. This is produced by Ace Magic Studios. Check it out. Have a look at it. You're going to open yourself up to a massive sort of cross section of people that have probably never heard of you before. From a business point of view, it's kind of an interesting decision. I get what you're saying about you don't want to, I get that, but also it would open up so many opportunities to you not even if you just put every trick out with them, but just a few tricks out with them, it would get more people very, very quickly to know who you are.
Which is what we're looking at the moment. So I fully stand by my decision as being the right thing to do for the first 3 years. Now we're at a point where our range is growing fairly rapidly. The quality is still exceptional. The customer service is still exceptional. And I think now is the right time that we are going to look at contacting people like Murphy's and getting out a bit more. We do get a hell of a lot of international orders. We get a lot from Australia, a lot from the States. But yeah, as you say, that it's very, very hard to get that exposure without the likes of Murphy's. The problem is for a creator, not a dealer, but a creator. So if you I'll take Alakazam as an example, and they're a very bad example because they're so well established. But imagine if Alakazam were not well established and they were starting up. They'd be getting new products from Murphy's every week. So they've always got something to talk about, always something new, always something fresh. We can't do that. If we get an idea, we can't bring that idea out in 2 days. If we get an idea, we're talking months and months and months of work before that even, you know, hits the shelf. So we almost have to be well ahead of the game to have stuff to release. That's not always possible. You know, we don't put stuff out for the sake of it. We put it out because it needs to go out. You know, so we can't force good products. We can't force good ideas. We had a conversation recently. So Ace primarily became known as a creator of workable mentalism in the first year. Because of the book test, we started working with a guy called Martin Pierce, and we produced a number of his products. He still works with us to this day. But they were very mentalism focused. They're brilliant, but they're mentalism. I then shifted a little bit to doing like wall art and things. So we did the reverse perspective illusions that were a massive hit at Blackpool. We produced lenticular posters. And then we've gone into more sort of visual stuff. Our last 6 releases are super, super visual. And you need to keep people interested because not everybody's interested in, for example, card magic or visual magic or mentalism. So you need a bit of everything. And, you know, I said to Stevo, and we'll talk about Stevo, but I said to him the other day, you know, I'd like to turn my mind back to the mentalism a little bit because we've done a number of visual things and wall art. I'd like to get my mind in the mentalism side of things. And he basically said, you know, you can't sort of force it. And it's true. I'd like to think of, to look at some mentalism stuff. But if I don't come up with an idea that's fantastic, I can't say, well, I'm not going to release anything else.
Hang on a minute, Gary. This is the slippery slope that a lot of creators go down.
Yeah.
I see a lot of creators, and what they do is they'll bring something else out that's amazing, and they'll bring something out that's amazing, and then they'll constantly have people saying, what's your next idea? What's your next idea? What's your next idea? And they'll release something that's not particularly great just because there's so much pressure on them to do that. And I know that from firsthand experience. When I started releasing magic way back, I got to a point where everyone's heard of Red. I've talked about it a lot on this channel, and that as a result of what you're saying. So it's very it is a slippery slope to go down you're right, and that's one thing that I see that you're doing really well. That all of your stuff is just quality.
It is. But see, what we would do, as opposed to saying, right, we need to release a mentalism item because we haven't for ages. What can I come up with? What can I come up with? What can I come up with? Okay, I've got a couple of ideas. They're not great, but they'll do. That's never going to happen. That's never how we'll work. It's got to be fantastic or it won't go out. So if I was to say, for example, we need to put a mentalism item out, the guys are asking for more mentalism stuff. If I was to put, I've got a very mentalism brain. If I was to put, say, a month of solid thought into it and still not come up with anything, that's the way it is. I would then reach out to other mentalists and say, right, we're looking for some really fantastic ideas. Have you got any ideas for us that we could work on with you? I would rather give the credit to somebody else for their idea than put out an idea of mine that's not good enough. That's just not going to happen. And honestly, the amount of stuff that we come up with that just doesn't even make it even halfway, I'm sure you get cracking. I've got some incredible ideas, absolutely incredible things. And they've just reached a point where they you have to make a decision. Do I take this further or do I just leave it for now? And to take it further means a lot of time, a lot of money. So many things that we've got to that are just not good enough. It's just not going to fit our brand. We've got a card gimmick thing that myself and Stevo came up with. Sweet Jesus, this thing is brilliant. It's so nice. But it's a slight similarity, only slight, to something else that was released. Only slight. And if you was to put the two side by side and ask 100 people, 98 of them would say, no, they're not the same. But because we want to be the nice guys, we're not even going to release it. We're not going to risk that. We're not going to have that one person out there who says, that's a copy of that. We don't want that. We honestly, we have had people question our ethics before, incorrectly. And it hurts. We feel it here because we love what we do. I mean, a case in point, for example, the reverse perspective illusions. And if anyone hasn't seen them, they're kind of three-dimensional. They look like flat prints, and as you walk past them, they move. So it's like a perspective change. It's like you can look down the corridors and things. When I designed those and had those produced, they were massive at Blackpool, absolutely massive. We put them out onto Facebook and everything. And I won't name names, but a few people called me out straight away as being a rip-off artist for ripping off the guy that created and popularized this type of artwork. Now, this was without any research, without anything. It was just calling me out and saying, what do we magicians think about this guy ripping them off? Now, all they had to do was click on the link to the product page and read the paragraph at the bottom. You see, when I wanted to design those, I knew that it was a guy called Patrick Hughes that had popularized them. I went to his website and he had a whole page, a long page, of every person that ripped off his artwork. And he was just outing them on this page. So I contacted him and I said, Patrick, look, I'm in love with your artwork. I want to do this, this, and this, but I want to do it with your blessing. What is the correct way, if there is a correct way, of doing this? He said, can you come see me? So I went up to his gallery in London, spent most of the day there. Incredible place if you get to go. He gave me his full blessing. He gave me a lot of tips on how to do the shadows and the lighting and stuff like that. So those releases, I'd done things the right way. Those releases were perfectly ethical. But as I'm sure you'll know, people do tend to jump on you if they think that you're doing something wrong, especially in the magic community. But, we do everything that we can to make sure that we do things the right way. We've had effects out. We had an effect called Harry the Hamster. And it was a similar effect, we found out later, to something from Jerry Sedowitz. Only very, very similar, slightly similar, sorry. But we just made the decision to pull it. So we no longer sell that effect. Financially, we will be at a loss. And that kind of leads me, I think, as well, into the customer service side of things, where I just said that we'd be at a loss. it's the same with our individual customers. You know, we want to give a one-to-one service, and I've turned a lot of custom away when I haven't felt that it's right for somebody. So if you take, for example, the screenplay book test, you know, the amount of questions that we had about that. Does it use memory work? Do you need, you know, strong glasses or perfect eyesight, or what are the conditions, blah, blah, blah. And I've said to people, look, do you want to get on a call? Do you want to get on Zoom? Do you want to get on Skype? I'll show you it. I'll show you how it works. You can decide. And honestly, the majority of them have still gone ahead and bought it, but a good number of them haven't, because I've turned around and said, no, you know, if you've got an issue with this or this, it's not going to be right for you. I've had people on that. This is not a smart business move, I know, but it's far more than a business for us. I've said to people that I don't think the book is right for them. And the reason that I've said that, I've not said it to them, but in my mind, I'm thinking, they're not going to do this justice. They're not someone that's going to practice and put the time in. They're just not going to do this well enough. So I've steered them towards other products. And I'd rather lose a sale than have one of our products out there being performed badly. And again, I know it's not a smart business move, but it's so much more than the business.
Yeah, it is. I totally agree. And it takes balls of steel to set up a business and have an opportunity there where you can go, well, you know what? I'm going to put all this in Murphy's. It's going to get me a big name out, and then just go, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. And you're going to do it your way. And it's, you know, a testament to you. It's like I say, balls of steel. Now, for the people that haven't seen you or heard of Ace Studio, can you, I don't want to turn this into a dealer dem. It's not a dealer dem, but could you highlight a couple of things? First of all, give us the web address down there. I'm going to put it down on the screen. What's the web address?
No problem. So it's going to be acemagicstudio.com.
There you go.
Nice and easy to remember. So our recent focus, I'll see if I've got a Sharpie. Yes, I have. So I'll just quickly draw something. So our recent focus has been on visual magic. Now, that hasn't come about because of the pandemic and the increase in Zoom shows. We were working on these things way before that happened. But I suppose you could say the timing was right, because people are really looking for visual stuff at the moment. So our last 6 releases are super simple, super visual things that are they're kind of ideal for Zoom shows and social media magic, where you want to do like a 20-second clip or something like that. So this is one of our latest releases. This is my idea, and it's called Pull Your Hair Out. So the idea is, I really love anniversary waltz as a trick. I think it's fantastic, and it leaves people with a lovely souvenir. But I don't think there's enough tricks like that for children, or even sort of early teens, that kind of age range. So I came up with this. So the idea would be that you'd notice the child at the table. You'd say, oh, let's try something. You'd take your cards. You'd be drawing a picture while you're talking to them, and then you turn the picture around and say, now, do you know what this is? And they would say, yeah, it's a hat and a magic wand. And you say, what's in the hat? And they would say, well, it's a rabbit. And you say, yeah, it's a rabbit, but it's not very good, is it? I'm not very good at drawing. I'm trying to make things a bit more lifelike, but maybe if we used a magic word, for example, we can make this a bit more lifelike. So you ask the child if they know any magic words, hocus pocus. Okay, so after 3, if you shout hocus pocus, we'll see if the rabbit could be a little bit more lifelike. So 1, 2, 3, hocus pocus. And then the rabbit actually prints in full color, like so. And then you say, but if we could do some real magic, we'd be able to take the rabbit out of the hat, like so. And you pull the rabbit out of the hat, which they can then keep as a little magical souvenir.
Right.
I think that's the perfect answer to that question. You know, if you could do a trick for a kid, for a child, while doing close-up magic for adults and give them a souvenir, that's something I would do.
And do you get refill? Can you get refills for that as well?
Yeah, so that comes with a pack of 20 giveaway rabbits. I've got to put the giveaway, the add-ons on the website, but they're going to be a couple of quid again.
Restaurant magicians, that is amazing. That is so good. I remember you showing me something just off camera the other day when we were discussing doing this interview, and it was a really nice idea with a battery. Can you show everyone that?
Which idea, sorry?
Battery thing, and the level went up. Have you got that?
I don't actually. I've actually just packed them all up, so I'd have to take one out. But if you go onto the Ace Magic Studio website, that's called Charge Card. The trailer is up there now.
Yeah, it's really good. I love the idea.
It's really, really cool. Really cool. Yeah. All of the latest releases, the 6 visual things, they're not just visual for visual's sake. They've got a reason. They fit into, you can fit them into your routine in different places, which is really nice.
Can you show us one more of your new releases? Have you got anything else? One more?
I haven't got any to hand, actually. I've got a Vino card here, which is kind of similar, which is a drawing on a card, which I know I showed you the other day. But this is basically a wine glass that you draw on a card that whenever you want will actually fill itself with wine. And this, again, fits into a routine really, really well. Honestly, I can't wait to get out and start using these things again.
That's great. And you are right. It would work brilliantly for a virtual show. That would work brilliantly for a virtual.
All of these things genuinely do. And again, they weren't designed for that purpose. It just so happens that we need to talk a little bit more about Stevo as well, and sort of where Ace is at the moment. But
do that, and I do want to do that. But let me ask about one more product. We've talked over and over and over about the book that put you on the map, which is the cooking book, which is a book test.
Yeah.
As you know, that's something that I didn't pick up just because I knew it wouldn't fit my act. But you brought out a new version of that, which I think is amazing. And it's all to do with movies. You don't have to perform the trick, but could you show people the quality of that book? Would that be okay?
Of course, let me just grab one.
I'm going to go on record as saying that this is one of the best book tests I have ever seen. It's just amazing.
I'll be honest, okay, so I'm a bit of a lazy performer and I'm also a bit of a perfectionist. And that's a weird combination. But of all the book tests, I know I created this, but this is the book test that I will use. This will be my go-to, genuinely. So What's Cooking was a recipe book. As you know, it was a full color recipe book. So I had a stack of book tests that I owned, you know, the big ones, the main ones, the best ones at the time. But they were all black and white. They were novels, they were dictionaries. There was no engagement. There was no, you know, you couldn't really connect to those books. They were just props. And I know a lot of hardcore mentalists would say, well, yeah, that's what they are. They are just props. They're just a vessel to get where you're going. Fully understand that. But I wanted to create a book that was authentic, that wouldn't look out of place, that you could do some solid mentalism with. So I created the first book, as you know, What's Cooking, which was a full colour book test. And genuinely, when I got the proof copies done, I think I got about 6 copies done. And I gave one to my mum and one to one of my sisters. I'd always tell this story, but it's completely true. They put those recipe books in their kitchens as recipe books because I told them, oh, I've just done some design work for a customer for a recipe book. I've got a few left. Do you want one? And they would cook from that book as a recipe book. So that was then set up. The pre-show was done a year in advance. You know, when it came out a year later at Christmas, oh, have you got a book? Absolute perfection. I've had customers. I had one customer that bought that book. He then bought another one straight away because in case the first one got damaged, he then bought 2 more. And I said, why? And genuinely, he was giving them as gifts, as recipe books to his 2 best friends. Again, setting up well in advance. It's just fantastic. So with What's Cooking as well, I didn't want it to just be, look at a word, think of a word, here's the word you're thinking of. Look at a different word. I wanted there to be more. So with that book, you could reveal colours and numbers and a word. So it took things a different direction. So instead of just saying to somebody, you're thinking of a paella, you'd say, well, you know, you're looking at the page, look at the main image of the food or whatever's being cooked. Just take that. I'm getting like, it's like a red color, isn't it? And they'd say, yes. You say, I was getting a bit thrown off. Is there another image somewhere? And they'd say, yes. You say, it's kind of green, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Okay, just focus on the first word for me. And then you'd reveal that word. And for me, that was far more believable. You know, it wasn't too perfect. You're picking up on details as opposed to facts. But everybody that bought it or wanted to buy it said, can you reveal the name of the recipe? It was never designed for that. And I wasn't willing at the time to change the method and change all the work I'd done for that because it's not what I wanted it to be. So cut to a few years later, I decided I wanted to do another book test, which is screenplay that you've kind of introduced. And I wanted to do movies because they're universal, they're visual, everybody knows movies. And I was very selective as to the movies that I used, which I'll show you, obviously. I wanted them to be very, very recognizable. So again, I created this book from absolute scratch, from nothing to what you see now. So it's a book that looks like this, Film Nation. So it definitely looks the part. You can see on there, it says contains spoilers. It really does look the part. And if I flick through, it's a book about movies. It's got facts, it's got box office stats, it's got posters, screen caps, absolutely everything in there. All different movies. So the lovely thing about this is you can hand the book to a spectator and they can choose any movie that they like. Ideally one that they've seen, but absolutely any movie. You can then reveal a number of things. So if I just crack open a random page like this, this is what you'll be able to reveal. You'll be able to reveal this number down here, which it says just above, number of times I've watched this film, which is the author, how many times they've watched it. You can reveal this number here, which is the average number of daily online and on-demand views. You'll be able to reveal this picture, which in this case is a bottle of drink. But that will obviously be different on different pages. You'll be able to reveal the name of the film, and you'll be able to reveal the number if it's in a franchise. So, for example, Die Hard 3, Karate Kid 2. So even if you want to take it that step further. So, for example, if somebody was looking at Karate Kid 2 and I was doing the reveal, I would obviously pick out that it's a Karate Kid film and everything. And then I'd say, I'm getting a bit of a feeling of it's like an Asian country. It's not American. And I pick up on the fact that it's kind of, is it Okinawa? Is it Okinawa? Because I know that Karate Kid 2 was set in Okinawa. So you can really expand the reveal.
That's the nice thing about films. You can use some of the stuff that Peter Nardi's talked about in the past, where you can, if you know a film, you can go, okay, think of like you were just looking at Die Hard, for example. Okay, think of an actor in that film. Well, they're going to think of Bruce Willis.
Yeah. With something like this, I think that the reveal of the film name is either the last thing or not even something you reveal. Because if you reveal enough information about the film without naming the film, they will in their own mind make up their mind that you know what that film is. Sometimes you don't even need to say the name. Do you know what I mean?
Very nice. And I love the fact that you've even gone to the trouble of having a fake author. And
everything is legit in here. So even at the start, there's a whole section about motivational movies. There's a page about the author. You know, it's the same as I did in What's Cooking. There was an about the author page. There was about 20 pages of just legit cooking information, nothing to do with the book. There's little bits and pieces in here as well. So there's a little movie quiz in here that then reveals a prediction. There's even stuff built into this front cover. So I shouldn't reveal too much, but it's Film Nation, and it's written by Denise Tovia, which is there. Mm-hmm. Now, Film Nation, Denise Tovia, is an anagram of Final Destination movie. So to give you an idea where that's going.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Lots of little things built in there.
So very quickly, talk to us about Stevo. You've mentioned this guy, Stevo. For everybody who's never heard of Ace Magic Studio or you, Gary, who's Stevo? Because I know you've just recently made him a director of your company, right?
I have. So we are looking at last Blackpool, just before, a few weeks before last Blackpool. Stevo came to me with an idea for a potential product. Now, the product was great, but it was, again, very similar to something that's out there by Richard Sanders, of all people. Obviously, we reached out, and it's very similar. So we went on a call, myself and Stevo, sort of a 10-minute call, so he could show me the trick, and that call turned into 4 hours. We just clicked straight away. There was just something there that we just talked and talked and talked and talked and talked. Very, very similar people. You know, we both got young kids, both got families, both had the mental health side of things in the past. So we just clicked, and a friendship came very, very, very quickly. At the end of that 4-hour call, I said to him, I'm doing Blackpool next month. It's just me on the stand. Do you want to join me? And he jumped at the chance. You know, he'd never done anything like that. It was only my second Blackpool. And to be honest, I needed the help. I thought, I'll just take a punt on this guy. You know, at the time, I didn't know him that well. I thought, I'll take a punt, see if he wants to help out. So he came along to Blackpool with another guy, Jason. Jason's now doing his own thing, which is cool. But Stevo absolutely worked his backside off at Blackpool and has been with me ever since. He just, he comes up with his own ideas. He's got his own products on the shelf now. We're doing a lot of collaboration work. He's a really hard-working guy, really nice guy. Everybody that knows Stevo loves him, and I'm really, really happy and honoured to have him on the team. To be honest, it's a really good thing moving forward. But yeah, just before Christmas, he kind of needed to make this sort of decision. You know, am I going to carry on doing full time with Ace, or have I got another plan? And all he wanted to do was work with Ace. So I turned around and said, look, if you're serious about this, I'll bring you on as a director. Let's do this as a team. Because, you know, for 2 years, I had help here and there, but I was doing everything myself. It's too much for one person. You know, we still do everything internally from, you know, all the graphic design I do myself. We get the stuff printed. I make the boxes. I shrink wrap the boxes. I hand post everything that goes out. Stevo's there always making gimmicks. He's about to do our Zoom lectures, which have really, really taken off, which is fantastic. So, yeah, it's just really nice to have somebody on board that's equally as passionate as I am. He holds the same values. He's happy to, even late last night, somebody had some questions. He got on the phone, I think it was about 10:30, he got on the phone, had a chat with them. Yeah, it's just fantastic. He's just a great guy to have on board.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, before we wrap all this up, I've got 2 questions for you. And the first question is, can you give the people that are watching this interview any tips on creativity? Because that's one thing that I've got from this interview and listening to you is you're a very creative guy and a very ethical guy, which is good to see. And you've created some amazing stuff, like just the book test that you talked about, but everything else, you've obviously got an eye for, and that's the thing that a lot of magicians want to do. They want to be able to create their own material. They don't just want to be doing the same stuff that everyone else is doing. So have you got any advice for somebody who wants to create their own magic, whether that be for them to use it themselves in their act, or whether that be to ultimately create something that they can release to the magic community? Where do you get inspiration from? What advice can you give us on creativity?
So I'm lucky. I'm very lucky that I've always been creative. Even when I was younger, I used to write poetry and I had poetry published. I always need to be doing something new. I mean, I've got a guitar here that I bought that I want to learn, still haven't. I've got a flute that I bought that I want to learn, I still haven't. But I always need to be learning something else. Now, I would say you can't force creativity. You just can't make a good idea happen. Most of my best products have just been where I've just sat here and it's just come to me, and I can't explain that. It just happens. But without talking too much about products, so we're now working with a chap called Rhys Goodley, who is making waves in the mentalism community. He's released a number of products, some things alongside Peter Turner. His stuff is incredible. Now, I'm not turning this into a sales pitch, but he's basically putting his latest book through us, and it's called Order of the Magi. And it basically teaches you how to be a real magician. If you were a real magician, what would you do? And when he sent me the PDF, I read it, Stevo read it the next day. And afterwards, we both had the same feeling. You know, when you watch a movie like Green Mile or Shawshank, and afterwards you sit down and you think, oh, and you just sit there in that kind of haze thinking, that's got me a bit. This book genuinely had that effect on us, that we are now independently looking at our own magic and thinking, yeah, we're going to change this, we're going to change that. And the reason I tell you this, that he mentions in his book, and this is a very good tip, for Rhys, it's about having a happy place, a place that you can go, and he specifically says, you need to have something in your life that you're as passionate about as you are magic, that you can take inspiration from. Now, for me, that wholeheartedly is Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a massive, massive part of my life. That's a whole other story. The things that happened in Vegas, the experiences that I've had, but that's therefore influenced me to create some magic. So if you was to take, for example, Vegas Choice, that's directly attributed to my passion about Vegas. I've got 2 other Vegas things that I'm working on, and a deck of cards that's Vegas themed. That I get so much inspiration just from that one thing because I'm so passionate about it. So I think that really does help to just find something else that you're as passionate about. It may be fishing, you know, it may be just walking. Do those things. You need to have somewhere as well that you can go away from day-to-day life. You know, especially at the moment, like I'm working, this studio here is in my house. My 3 kids are downstairs. You know, they're being nice because I've told them to, but as soon as this interview stops, it'll be chaos here. You can't think, you know, you can't force ideas, but even if you're getting a loose idea, you need to clear your head. You need somewhere calm that you can think. That's not always easy to find, but you have to do it. And I've made it a point, actually, that I'm going to spend a little bit more time visiting spas, believe it or not. And the reason for that is I just want to sit by a pool quietly and think and read and write. Because even though it may be calm and peaceful for me during the day and the kids are back to school and everything's fine, because I'm in this ACE bubble here, you're almost restricted because you're in your office. It's like you need to go somewhere else where you're away from work, you're away from family, you're away from any problems you may be having, and you're just in this creative zone that's separate from everything else. And that's something that I'm gonna force myself to do. I've never done that before. I can't promise it's going to work, but I think it's a good idea.
That's great. That's really, really good. That is really solid advice. Very quickly, before I ask my last question, you brought up Vegas, and I know you've got a lot of stories, and maybe we'll share them on another interview.
Yeah.
But a little birdie told me that you got a chance to go and check out David Copperfield's museum. Not museum, but warehouse. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'll summarize for you because I could talk about Vegas for about 4 days, literally. So I made the decision to go to Las Vegas. I think it was 2016. It was 2015 or 2016, I think 16. At the time, I had a friend who will remain nameless, and I was going to go to Vegas with this person, and they decided that their life was going to go a different path, you know, without taking on the negatives. Things went a bit sour. We fell out. So there was me left with this whole plan of Vegas and not sure what to do. And completely unlike me, I just said, F this, I'm doing it. I need to do something for myself for once. So I decided I'm going to go to Vegas on my own. And the family all rallied round and supported my decision. So I booked this trip to Vegas, and it was meant to be the trip of a lifetime, never going to happen again. Make sure I do everything that I want to do. So I booked a bunch of shows, magic shows, Copperfield, Matt King, Nathan Burton. And there were 2 highlights to this trip. One was going to be a helicopter trip to the bottom of the Grand Canyon with a boat trip along the river and stuff. Now, bearing in mind, I was absolutely terrified of flying. Heights are my worst enemy. So I was going to be going on an aeroplane for the first time on my own on a 10.5-hour flight. And then when I get there, I was going to go in a helicopter down inside the Grand Canyon. You know, this was massive for me. The second highlight was going to be seeing Mr. Copperfield, who, as I say, has always been my biggest idol in magic. So I booked front row, middle seats, meet and greet package, the works. So the night of the show, I go to watch the show, sit in the middle. I'll be honest, I didn't enjoy the show. I know that will upset some people, but I didn't enjoy the show. Parts of it, yes, but not as a whole. But I was sat in the middle, front row, watching, and he does an illusion where it's kind of a prediction / illusion, but the ending is that he makes a car appear on top of these kind of pillars on the stage. And I think it's his granddad's car that he makes appear. So he gets the audience members all to sort of go round the pillars and hold on. They drape this massive cloth over the top, and then when they whip it away, the cars appeared. Awesome. Apart from, I saw absolutely everything that you're not supposed to see. And I was front row centre, so I knew that this table, this table, this table, this table all saw it. And I'm not talking about a flash. I'm talking about the works. I saw a lot. And the way that it worked, I won't reveal here, was insanely clever. But I saw everything. And that really bugged me. So once I came out of the show, I went out and I told the girls at the front desk what I'd seen, and they weren't interested. You know, it's not their job. It's not their concern. They're there to sell the tickets and things, which is fair enough. But about 5 minutes later, Chris Kenner comes out. Chris Kenner is, I believe, David Copperfield's kind of manager. They work very closely together. I'd been speaking to Chris on Facebook before that point anyway. And he came out and he said, "What do you think that you saw?" And I told him exactly what I saw. And he said, "Okay, yeah, there's a problem." So he obviously said, "Thank you for letting us know." Yeah, no problem at all. And I went back over to my hotel, which was just over the road. And then I had a message from Chris. He said, "Oh, David's very, very grateful for you letting us know there's a stagehand that should have been on the stage at that point doing something, which I won't say on this video. They're off sick this tonight. Clearly, we weren't aware of how important their position was. So we fixed it. Do you want to come back to the next show for free as a thank you? I said, no, thank you. That's fine. And about 10 minutes later, he messages again. He said, I've got to go to David's warehouse. Do you want to come over? That one message was like, really? You know, David Copperfield warehouse. He said, yeah. He said, I've got to go over and do a few bits. Do you want to come over? If you can come back over to the MGM, meet me at the door and we'll go. So I jump in Chris Kenner's car. We drive to David Copperfield's warehouse. We walk in and I had about 2 hours, just me and Chris, but for the majority of the time, Chris was just doing other things. I just had a free run. That absolutely fried my brain because looking around his warehouse, there's so many things that I recognized. The most important one for me personally was seeing in David Copperfield, and I know in different shows, but in Copperfield's montage of illusions and stuff, when he comes down in that elevator and all the sides go up and it's empty, and then it comes down and he does the shadow box thing where he goes down and it opens. That's just in storage, you know, and I was stood there with that in front of me. And that to me is like a massive part of magic history, that illusion. The exhibits in there, there was, I don't want to reveal things on your channel, obviously, but there was like a doll's house. And Chris said, I'll have a look at it. And it was just like a doll's house about this big. And I looked around, I opened the door, I was looking inside and everything. And that thing was worth like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. And it was just sat on a table. And that was just one thing amongst thousands. You know, the gun that shot Chun-Ling Soo was in there in a glass case, and Cardini's original suit with the monocle on the hat, and the real deal stuff, obviously the Houdini stuff. There's photos. I'm happy to share a couple of photos. David did say he didn't want all of the photos that I took shared as one lump because it reveals quite a lot of stuff, but I've got a lot of photos if anyone wants to see them. And one of them is me next to the water torture, that, you know, Houdini's actual one, and the you know, the metal can, and it's almost got, you know, Ghostbusters, you know, the first scene of Ghostbusters where she's walking around and you've got that ooh music playing. It almost feels like you can hear that inside of you because you're so close to these things and you've got this connection to that history, and you know that, you know, what this was used for. It's really strange. It's almost like your stomach turns a little bit. But I believe they are working on the museum to put together a tour. It's not going to be the whole thing, but it's going to be a guided tour through certain sections. So if you get the chance and you love magic as much as I do, be there.
Awesome. That is a great story. Now, to finish this whole thing off, Gary, I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everyone when they come on this channel, which is, what's next? You've set up Ace Magic Studio. It's been a success. You've already said that you're going to be looking to maybe put some of your stuff out with Murphy's to get more people with their eyes on Ace, which is fantastic. What's next? What are your plans?
At the moment, we're working on a lot of products. We've got no plans to change anything. There's no big change in the future. We're just going to continue doing what we're doing because it works. For a creator or creators like us, it is a hard uphill climb because we are still the little guys, and we don't get the exposure that we need. So it is a hard climb, but we're going to keep doing that climb because eventually we're going to get to where we want to be. I've recently started dabbling with playing card design. So I just completed my first Kickstarter for a deck of cards called Time is Magic. That was successful. I'm working on a number of other decks. I've got printouts here that you're welcome to see if you want to, working on some new decks of cards. We're going to be doing some more charity stuff as well. So in hand with that, I'll show you one of the deck designs. I did touch on the mental health side of things previously. Myself and Stevo, we want to do something to support mental health charities, especially men's mental health. So I've been working on a deck of cards, which are called Brothers, that I'm hoping to bring to Kickstarter, and we're going to give all of the profits to men's mental health charities. So just to give you a very, very quick insight into my thought process, I wanted to create a deck of cards that shows that there's two sides to the story. We are focusing on men's mental health because that's what we understand. So with any man, there's potentially two sides to the story. There's the man that you see who puts up the brave face for everybody, and then there's the man behind who perhaps keeps quiet, but he's suffering. We also wanted to show that it affects men of all ages, from boys to men. And the design that I came up with, there's 2 versions, but in effect, it's this.
Oh, lovely.
So we've got the word brothers, and again, to show that there's 2 sides to every story, that's an ambigram. So on both sides, it will say brothers. We have the different ages, and then we show the frustration that a lot of men suffer with these scratch marks, which I think kind of encompasses things. And then there's a silver version as well. So this is something that we're really passionate about. And as I said, this is not a business move. This is something that we want to do as part of our internal bucket list. So hopefully people watching will support when that comes out.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing, Gary. Now, for anybody that's watching this, if you want to check out Gary's website and Ace Magic Studio, it's acemagicstudio.com.
Yes.
And you can sign up for their mailing list. And you do a very interesting thing when people do sign up for your mailing list. You send them a whole bunch of emails, first of all, telling them more about you as a person, don't you?
Yeah, it's not too many emails. We don't spam or anything, but you'll get a kind of sequence of emails over a few days that just tells you a bit more about my backstory, a little bit more detail than maybe I've covered today. But just so you know who I am, and I'm going to be adding a bit about Stevo's backstory as well, because I think it's important. You know, people buy into us as people. They don't just buy the products. You want to know we're not a faceless company. We never want to be. And I want to say to every person that's watching out there, if you, I'm talking to you, want to contact us, contact us. We want to hear from you. If you're doing a 9-to-5 day job, but you'd really like to talk to us to get some advice, or if you've got a product idea, fantastic. Just send us a message. I'll come up here at 10 o'clock at night. I'll come up here at midnight if that's the time that you're free, and sit on the phone with you or a call. We want to make friends doing this. That's the most important part. That's why we love Blackpool. It's not about the selling, it's about the social of an evening. We want people to talk to us. We want to talk to people. We want to share ideas. We want to jam. So we're not a company where you contact us and then you're passed to the sales department or you're passed through to accounts. You speak to me or you speak to Stevo. That's the end of the story.
That's great. That's great. And you really should reach out to them. You, Gary, and Stevo, Ace Magic Studios, you are the good guys in magic. And it's really great to see a success story, somebody who has come from absolutely nowhere to achieve the level of success that you have. It's amazing. It really is. So get on their mailing list. They put some really great products out. You don't spam people, and it's well worth being on there. And yeah, Gary, one more time, thank you so much. Like I said, I know how busy you are. Kids, family, homeschooling, running a business, all the products that are launching this week. So thanks for taking the time out to speak to me. Really,
it's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks, man. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel. We go live with 15 videos every single week. So we're going to be back again soon with another video. And don't forget, 6 o'clock every single day, it's a Magic Live. So I'll see you then. Thanks very much for watching. Take care. Bye, everybody.